Russians are set for another 6 years of Vladimir Putin's rule after an election held following a crackdown on political opposition. Putin faced no meaningful opposition in the vote, which both the EU and US said was neither free nor fair. In his victory speech, Putin said he would now focus on Ukraine, 2 years after a full-scale invasion of Russia's neighbour that was expected to last only a few days. And for more, I'm joined now by DW's Eastern Europe editor, Roman Goncharenko. Roman, welcome to the studio. Now, Vladimir Putin has extended his rule, as expected. What should we expect from him now that he has secured another term?
Well, basically, we can expect more of the same. So more war outside of Russia, more war against Ukraine, but maybe he will try to intimidate the West. Countries, former Soviet republics like Moldova, a neighboring country of Ukraine, could be in his focus because we saw some attempts, or at least that looked like that, attempts to destabilize the situation. A representative from Moldova regions traveled to Moscow. A representative from a Transnistria, which is a kind of a separatist republic on Moldovan territory, asked the Russian parliament for support, asked Russia for support. So that could be coming. Inside of Russia, he'll be tightening the grip further, grip on the opposition as well, although it's hardly possible to do that. We could also expect in the coming 6 years, if we look a little further away, that maybe Russia will try to close in even more than before, so cutting ties with the West, probably cutting things like YouTube, which is maybe one of the last channels, media channels, a very important channels connecting Russia to the outside world, to the Western world.
Mm-hmm. And can I ask you what Putin's new term will mean for Ukraine in particular?
Well, as I've just said, it would mean certainly more war, so there are no signs of Russia getting tired of Vladimir Putin, showing signs of fatigue or maybe going for a compromise. So he's saying, basically, I'm winning and I intend to continue with my goals, and his goals actually to destroy Ukraine as a sovereign state as it was established in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So he will pursue that goal, and I think in this year, maybe if we look at this year and the next year, maybe 2025, a lot will depend on how this war continues and what will happen in the United States. Who will be the next president of the United States? Ukraine is very much dependent on US help. If there is little help, then of course Putin might be going at a higher speed. What is also important is we should watch the major Ukrainian cities like Kharkiv, closer to the Russian border, and Odessa, a major and very important Black Sea port of Ukraine, actually the last one, big one that is left. We've seen in the past days, just prior to the election, a lot of talk in Russia itself and from Putin also, from the Russian president, about Odessa. So this is the key region for the coming months and years to watch.
OK. You mentioned, Roman, that he was going to try and squeeze the opposition even further, whatever is left of the opposition. I mean, does he face any real threats at this point?
Well, at the moment, it looks like he's very stable. So in short term, no, I would say. But in the medium term and in the long term, the things could be unstable for him because this war is not popular in Russia. So there is a core of about 20, maybe 30% at the most who love it, who like it, and who go fight or support the fighting until Russia wins. But on the other hand, there is a majority that are not very much happy because Russians die in this war, and the population is getting to feel it more and more. So the more the war continues, the more difficult it could be for Putin. But at the moment, he's stable and he has enough money.
DW's Eastern Europe editor, Roman Goncharenko. Thanks so much, Roman. Now, the vote that extended the Russian leader's rule is looming large in the minds of European Union officials in Brussels. EU leaders are meeting there to decide on a new €5 billion military aid package for Ukraine. The EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, also gave this assessment of the election.
This has not been free and fair elections, no OSCE observation, highly restricted environment, which is diplomatically what I can say, but more than that, this election has been based on repression and intimidation and being held on the Ukrainian occupied territory, violating Ukrainian sovereignty.
DW's Terry Schultz joins us now from Brussels. Terry, we just heard there from the EU foreign policy chief. Does he speak for all European leaders in what he says?
We won't know until further along in this meeting whether all 27 EU foreign ministers agree with those remarks by High Representative Borrell, but most of them coming into this meeting were just blistering in their criticism of what they called so-called elections, sham elections. Many of them didn't even use that word to describe the voting process in Russia. And it's not a very high bar. There were no international observers. People in Ukraine and in territories occupied by Russia were forced to vote, sometimes under physical threat. And of course, any credible opposition to Putin has either been jailed, exiled, or in the case of Alexei Navalny, of course, killed. And that's something we do expect to come out of this meeting today. It is anticipated that ministers will agree to levy sanctions against people found to be involved in the death of Alexei Navalny in that Arctic prison. Of course, the other thing they'll be discussing related to Russia, ramping up support for Ukraine. Many of the ministers, particularly those along the front line, are saying that this should be considered an existential threat to Europe, just like Ukraine, and it is time to gather the political will to do what it takes to help Ukraine win.
Terry, thanks so much for that. That's Terry Schultz reporting from Brussels.